Absolutely, and I'm sure that the people who are growing marijuana legally want would rather have the customers come to them first and foremost, and they definitely want to produce a clean product.
Exactly.
Whereas this illegal marijuana, if 70% of it is covered in pesticides and nerve agents and things like that, that's going to affect our kids, our wildlife, our waterways. I mean, this is going to affect steelhead. It's going to affect trout. It's going to affect the bass fishing. It's going to affect all of those things. It's going to affect the wildlife. You know, I heard a story that the chemicals that they're spraying on these, the wildlife's coming in and eating the crop or eating the vegetation that is around one of these grows, and it's harming the wildlife that are there. It's also hurting the dogs that you guys are using, or could possibly be hurting the dogs that you're using. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Because up until a couple years ago, it's really been the last 3 or 4 years, we didn't realize the magnitude and the toxicity of these poisons. These EPA-banned carbofuran-based poisons just being left in the soil to be absorbed by a dog's paw. You know, if we touch this stuff, even when it's dissipated on the ground or in a waterway or on a marijuana plant, if we don't have nitrile gloves where it absolutely can't penetrate, we can ingest this stuff through our pores. And we've had officers from other states on the federal level actually almost deadly, fatally exposed during exposure in a marijuana, illegal trespass grow situation with these poisons on the product. We have lost a couple of very healthy canines at a very early age, at the start of their careers, when they were healthy, just a clean bill of health and doing great work from puppyhood through training. And can we say for sure it was those banned poisons? We can't. We don't have the scientific data. We don't have the science to back that up. But knowing how it affects wild animals, our non-game and game species, and knowing how it affects us, there is certainly a correlation there that could be what's happening. Now, I know on our team, on the state level, and with other federal officers with their dogs and other canines at the local level, throughout all the states, we're starting to take notice to that and starting to look at preventative, basically PPE, protective equipment and measures for our canines as well as for our officers.
What percentage of the time that your team worked on this, what percentage of their time is focused on cleaning up the reclamation of these particular lands?
Yeah, we talked a little bit before the interview to the phase of how critical the reclamation phase is, but how dirty and arduous it is. Usually when we get to doing reclamation, we've been 12 hours into a mission. We're running out of helicopter blade time. We've spent a long night or half a day trying to stalk and apprehend these guys safely and get them into custody. And if the plant's a big grow site, say 5,000 plus plants, and some of these are 10, 15, 20 plus thousand plants, we're going to be there for, maybe multiple days just eradicating that poison product. We don't always get to do the reclamation the day of the mission because we just run out of resources and time, and we don't like that. We have to leave that stuff out there. But what we do is we called kind of putting a Band-Aid on a cancer. We triage it, where we'll restore the waterways, keep the pollutants from going in the water. We'll stage the pesticides and the trash in an area where they're not doing environmental damage, but they haven't yet been removed. And then we'll come back in, sometimes as many as 4, 5, 6 months later when we have more helicopter funding or blade time and more time on the books and people to do the job. So we're spending easily 40+% of our time throughout the year, conservative estimate, maybe a little more, 40+% of our time doing reclamation missions for that environmental cleanup after we've already done the arrest and eradication phase. A statistic we were able to compile right before I retired is, as a whole, the marijuana enforcement team for my unit back at California Department of Fish and Wildlife reclamates to pretty much full environmental restoration, almost pristineness, if you will, 44% of all the grows we ever raid or missions we run. And that's less than 50%, and it sounds like a bad number, but compared to all the other agencies that don't have the resources to do it, that's about 30+% higher than anybody else. And it's not a ding on any other agency. They're tapped even less than we are, or more than we are, because they have to do all their other law enforcement collateral jobs in addition to the trespass grow problem. The one benefit of having the marijuana enforcement team formalized is we're a dedicated unit, so we don't have to do traditional patrol functions. We report straight to headquarters as a kind of a SOCOM type unit in the military, where you don't have too many hands in the cookie jar, so to speak, of red tape and restrictions, allowing us to work very efficiently, very quickly, and respond almost immediately. So when we want to run a reclamation mission, we can do it within a day or two, find the resources and knock it out. Our goal ultimately is to have 100% reclamation on every grow we ever come across. We're far from that, obviously with a 12-man team and 2 dogs. And you do the math on, probably doing 100 to 200 missions a year on conservative low side, on just cartel marijuana raids, dealing with hundreds of cartel suspects we capture in custody, taking out hundreds of weapons in that process and all those poisons. It's a lot to ask a team of that size, and they do a heck of a lot more than they're equipped to do.
Fantastic. What kind of success do you feel like your unit's having across the state of California?
I think the success rate has been good. I definitely know, I started to kind of develop a forte in this environment, this type of wildlife law enforcement on the cartel trespass grow side almost 15 years ago. And every year we got a little bit better, but it was kind of like 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. I think we're being very optimistic to say we're getting 25% of the cartel trespass grows out there, but that's up from probably less than 5% a decade ago. We might be getting more. What I can say from the standpoint of number of armed, deportable felons as they're classified that we arrest, that number has quadrupled or even higher since we started the team, because we're focused and we're doing it more often. We're doing it better with canine tactics. We're doing it better with guys that have learned to stalk quietly and just have innate, fieldcraft skills to do this type of job, because we come from hunting and fishing backgrounds. We're used to sneaking around in the woods like most hunters are. It kind of lends itself to being good at what this team, requires to do the apprehension phase of it. So long-windedly, we're doing a better job, but are we getting it all? By no means. We have a lot more going on in the state and the rest of the country. And we got to realize that it's not just a poisoned cannabis issue in California and some other states that we're dealing with. These same cartel groups are, when they're not producing illegal cannabis across the country, they're cooking methamphetamine within borders and distributing it all over the country and ruining people's lives. They're producing synthetic heroin, fentanyl. They're doing human trafficking for a multitude of reasons. They're running guns back to Mexico to fight the cartel wars, stealing a lot of guns, and stealing a lot of ammunition, all of which Mexico doesn't have the infrastructure for. So we're talking about one element of just a dangerous enterprise that's embedded nationally, and something we have to look at past just cannabis.
What percentage of these illegal grows are on public lands, like state versus federal? How much of this is on Forest Service land? How much of this is on BLM land? How much of this is on public land or state land, and how much of it's on private land?
Interesting enough, that's a really good question, because it's kind of changed. All of this stuff was primarily, I would say a majority of it, 60-70% was on federal land, U.S. forest land, national forest, 10 years ago. And that's an average, because we don't get it all. We don't have everybody's statistics, but we work very closely with U.S. Forest Service and national parks and Fish and Wildlife on the federal front. And of course on the state front, we have state parks, county open space. What we were seeing predominantly the last 3 years up until the end of 2018 when I retired is a 50-50 percentage split almost down the middle of private and public land. So of the public land, it was an even hodgepodge of, out of that 50%, just start breaking it evenly between state parks, U.S. Forest Service lands, national parks, county open space, city parks that have a little remote area, like in the city of San Jose and the Silicon Valley where I'm from. You'll actually see it there. And that shares 50% of where these trespass grows are. But as we started to put more pressure on the public land, we started to see private ranches, deer hunting clubs, fisheries, steelhead trout fisheries that, Trout Unlimited would highlight and enhance and, have a very regulated fishing experience and or a hunting experience on a cattle ranch with all this pristine, blacktail or mule deer country. And all of a sudden they're embedded there as much as they are anywhere, because they've gotten pressure on the public lands. So this isn't just in our national forest. This is in our backyard on our private lands as well, almost a 50-50 split.
That's just unbelievable to me how big this issue is. One last question. We're here at the NRA show, and it's really about guns and weapons and everything that we get to see. Tell me really quickly, what are some of the weapons you're using in this fight and in this hidden war?
Well, certainly equipment is everything to staying alive, and in this type of job, as far as the special ops team is concerned, we're all heavily into the weaponry we use, and we have to rely on it, and we have to know it's going to work. So we use a lot of different platforms. In the pistol front, we're a Glock agency, Glock 40 cal Model 22s. They've served us fantastic because they're polymer, they're bulletproof as far as dust and corrosion and dirt and debris and water, and they're lightweight. And one thing my team needs is a kit that is light as possible, because we hike in 100-degree heat, we hike great distances, and we hike in heavy elevation gains and very steep country to find these grows and deal with them. We went from an M14 rifle platform to Frank DeSoma's Patriot Ordnance Factory P308 back in 2012. I'm actually at the POF booth today where we're doing our book signings and press, because Frank has graciously put us up here because he was one of the biggest supporters of our mission, not only for the whole entire agency, but knows very well that that platform was going to be used extensively on the special operations front for the Met team. So we run the POF rifle. We run a piston-driven 7.62, so it's not maintenance free, but very easy on maintenance. Works really well in really brushy conditions and stuff. Easy to maintain, easy to clean. The original P308 was a heavy platform. We still ran it because we wanted the bigger caliber for the dense country we work in. And we just recently went to his ultralight platform, the Revolution, which kind of gives you a 5.56 weight and sized weapon in the 7.62 caliber. And those guns for the Met team especially have been a godsend. That one was a hard one to give up when I retired, because I finally had a lightweight, featherweight 7.62 I could fling around that wasn't like an anchor chain, and I had to turn it in. But the guys back on team still doing it are running that gun to really good effect right now. So that's what we're using on the product front, but it just breaks down to having good systems. And besides the weaponry, everything from armor plates and trauma medicine gear, what type of vehicles, what type of camouflage we use, just like a military special ops team. It's kind of a gadget game, and finding the right combination. And there is really good stuff to make our job effective, and Frank's rifle is one of them.
Fantastic. Real quick, last question. Where can people buy your book?
Okay. You can get that book at Barnes & Noble online or at Barnes & Noble stores and in any other major bookstore. You can buy it on Amazon. The Kindle version of it, Kevin, ironically, just dropped this week, along with the hard copies getting here in time for NRA. So you can get the hardback on Amazon, the Kindle ebook on Amazon. You can also get these through me if you want a personalized copy and you're not coming to one of my functions or talks or book signings. Just email me at trailblazer413@yahoo.com. That's trailblazer413@yahoo.com. And I'll set up arrangements where I can get you a signed copy shipped out. And you can also monitor me on the website as far as book events go and education and outreach at johnnorris.com, which is just JOHNNORES.com. And we'll be sure we get anyone that wants a copy and wants to take the time to read this book and expose the issue, a copy in hand quickly.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to this issue. Buy this book, read this book, and alert your local game and fish departments throughout the entire country, because to be honest, they need to know that the funding has to go towards making a difference, especially in California, but across the entire country as well. Let your game wardens know that they need to be prepared for this coming crisis.
Thank you, Kevin.